and tell me that's not hate.
I didn't wait a second. Now, hang on a second.
If you're very coarse in your discourse, whether it's political or in private, it has an effect on society.
To prosecute him criminally was a big mistake, and you're going to pay for it in this country.
Welcome back, guys, to Man a Lot Reacts, and in this video we will be reacting to a debate, BBC Question Time, and Jordan Peterson is a part of it. In this video you will be seeing Jordan Peterson teaching or presenting or showing how a mature and adult person should behave on a debate, and you'll be kind of frustrated or triggered to see a politician in this debate. You know, politicians are known for being good actors because all they do these days is they act, right? They just act. They don't do any real work. Most of the politicians just act, right? So they're known for being good actors. But these politicians sadly can't even do that. I don't know why they're a politician, but you'll be seeing them ranting about their whole life experience. So without taking too much time, let's start the video from now.
I think that sometimes the distinction between abusive speech and abusive action can be an artificial distinction. You might say, why is it wrong to be abusive about politicians and send them racist and sexist stuff online? It doesn't matter. All their threats will never happen. But Parliament saw one of our colleagues, Joe Cox, killed. And that sort of action, it's not necessarily the consequence of abusive language, but it is related to abusive language. On the Grenfell Tower thing, I don't think it should be a crime unless the police learn stuff that I don't know. But please, I met a number of those people who died, who had to see their relatives die in Grenfell Tower, who ran down those steps over dead bodies from Grenfell Tower. And I think it is horrific what was done. May not be a crime, but utterly horrific. If you understand the reality of Grenfell Tower, you know it utterly detestable and wrong. But as I say, you can't just say, well, you can call people packies and niggers, it doesn't really matter. It has no relationship to anything else. That type of abusive language does have a relationship to actions which are genuinely harmful and damaging and cruel. And I think sometimes when people are dismissive about, you know, racist and sexist language, they need to be careful, because what you do is you create a climate where certain actions become legitimate.
Guys, if you're getting value from this video, then please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any future updates. Back to the video.
Oh, I know in Scotland the police had put up advertisements in the tube encouraging people to turn people in for offensive behavior online. It seems to me, for example, if you're concerned about knife crime, then maybe one of the things you don't want to do is have your police investigating offensive speech. And one of the things I do see happening in the UK as an outsider that's really quite terrifying to me is that there are increasing restrictions put on people's ability to speak forthrightly, and that the consequence of that restriction and the criminalization of what hypothetically constitutes offensive speech is going to be a cure that's so much more worse than the disease that we can hardly imagine it. It's a dreadful thing to see that happening in the UK. And so, I mean, people say things that are reprehensible all the time, but we can't always agree on what they are. But to start to criminalize that's hypothetical.
Are you saying nothing that anybody says should ever be counted as a crime?
Well, there's incitement to crime. That should be counted as a crime, and has been for a very long time in the British common law tradition. But other than that, you should be very careful about what you regulate as speech. Who's going to regulate it? Who's going to define hate? That's the real issue. It's not that there's not hate. There's plenty of it. The question is, who defines hate and how is it prosecuted?
I'm not frightened of forthright speech. I'm quite a forthright speaker myself. But when you talk about who's going to define hate, you want to see the letters and emails I see day after day and tell me that's not hate.
I didn't wait a second. Now, hang on a second.
No, John. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So guys, the term we are looking here for is actually appeal to emotion. This is a logical fallacy used by people like these politicians. They use it, to manipulate other people's emotions to bolster their support to this type of unsound argument, where factual evidence is lacking. Now remember though, while appeal to emotion can be effective, that does not necessarily make an argument accurate or valid or, factual. And also she fails to address the point of Peterson about what is the definition of hate speech. And this interview, this debate, to be honest, this debate shows a contrast between emotion and logic. And a lot of politicians today use emotion as the main factor, and that's why they get a lot of votes. But they're not right, because they, to be honest, they're not even that intelligent. If you start asking them questions which are factual, which where they can prove you anything, just like recently a debate happened where Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy just asked her that, okay, we are going to be sending our soldiers to Ukraine. So do you know any place that our soldiers going to be dying in there? A name of the place? And she was silent.
And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for.
And that's what happens when you actually ask them about the evidence or logic or some facts, because they don't know any. They always, most of the times, run on emotions. They capture the emotions of people and then they get votes. That's how they win most of the time.
When you consider that they have bonfires every year where they burn effigies of politicians and famous people, are we now going to criminalise that as well and press criminal charges against people who put up effigies on bonfire night like that because we find it offensive, maybe?
I know, but I don't think we should encourage it. And I do think there's a link between this item and where we started. I was at a wedding last Friday and the celebrant spoke about courtesy. Nobody can spell the word anymore. And respect. And it was actually quite refreshing, because I think that is the problem, that there's an inherent rawness and coarseness. And I think politicians, we've allowed it. We've allowed this sense of they can say anything to you. And I'm sure I'm going to get it in the neck on Twitter, but I won't be reading it because I need to sleep. But I mean, it's funny, but it's not actually funny, because it just multiplies. So I'm a great believer in freedom of speech. I was a journalist, but your freedom to speak shouldn't interfere with mine. And I do think there's a sensitivity and an accumulative effect when you coarsen language. I looked at the President of the United States. His treatment of journalists today was incredibly, and at a time when journalists are being murdered around the world. So I think that while I support your notion that we shouldn't ban and stop because it goes underground, I think we should try and encourage people to realise that if you're very coarse in your discourse, whether it's political or in private, it has an effect on society.
Are there any words that should be criminal to use?
Brexit. Sorry, just when you do put me on the spot.
All roads lead to Brexit.
I was taking a more serious point.
Actually.
There was somebody.
Bored with Brexit.
There was hang on. There was somebody fined under the Communications Act earlier this year because he posed a video on YouTube of a dog doing a kind of Nazi salute, and he shouted in the background, "Gas the Jews," and he was fined. It was a criminal prosecution. Is that right in your view?
I didn't think that was right, no. I think it was a big mistake.
My girlfriend is always ranting and raving about how cute and adorable her wee dog is, and so I thought I would turn him into the least cute thing that I could think of.
I mean, I followed that case fairly carefully, and you don't have to agree that what he did was comical or right, but to prosecute him criminally was a big mistake, and you're going to pay for it in this country.
Now, I just want to make a point here that the man who made that offensive joke was definitely wrong, but that doesn't mean I would like that person to get persecuted as he got. And the fact that, you can't even make a joke anymore, I totally agree that the joke was really offensive, but that still should make the government come inside and take control of this place. I think if it's a social problem and people will take the charge and people can, take it their way and people can, shame the person, that's all the things they could do. But government coming inside is really scary, because then you will never know when the next thing will happen. You will never know. Maybe you might be just cussing out in public and you might get arrested for that. And a lot of politicians will use that against you. Anything that you say could get you persecuted, and that's the problem with this type of agenda that they're pushing. That's why people are fighting for free speech. And Jordan Peterson predicts that there will be consequences of these persecutions that are happening in UK. To be honest, that's scary. All right, this was it for the video. If this video helped you to gain some value or some knowledge, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon and like this video if you really enjoyed the interview and my breakdown. We'll be back with another interview or debate breakdown another week. The next week. Till then, take care everyone, and bye-bye. I think that was not a bye. I don't know how to say a bye. I'm sorry. Bye-bye.